Welcome to Moon Whispers! Tonight's question: is China's rise a threat to global freedom? We have two voices with us. AURIN will argue that China's rise is a danger to global freedom. BAIYU will offer a different view, saying it is not. Let's begin.
Thank you. I believe we need to look very carefully at what China's rise means not just for itself, but for the world. Yes, it's true that China has lifted millions of people out of poverty and built amazing cities and industries, but that's only part of the story. The other part is about control. Control over its own people and, slowly, more and more influence over others too. Inside China, freedom is deeply limited. People can't speak freely about their leaders. Journalists are not allowed to report the truth if it goes against the government. The internet is censored. Books are banned. People who speak out, like activists and lawyers, often end up in jail or worse. The government watches its citizens all the time through cameras, phones, and social media. This is not freedom. It's fear. Now, as China becomes stronger, that system of control doesn't just stay within its borders, it spreads. China is now punishing foreign companies for saying things it doesn't like. It pressures movie studios to remove content that might offend it. It uses its money and power to silence critics overseas. This is how freedom starts to shrink, even in places where people once thought they were safe. In Hong Kong, millions of people peacefully demanded democracy. They wanted to keep the rights they were promised, but China broke that promise. Protesters were arrested, media outlets were shut down, and a national security law was forced through that ended freedom of speech in the city. What happened there is a warning. If China is willing to crush freedom in a place it once promised to protect, what will it do elsewhere? And then there's Xinjiang. Millions of Uyghur Muslims are living under constant surveillance. Many have been placed in so-called re-education camps. Their culture is being erased. This isn't just an internal matter. These are human beings whose rights are being taken away on a massive scale. If we care about freedom, we can't ignore this. Some people say China's rise is peaceful, that it's only focused on trade and development, but power doesn't always need weapons to be dangerous. When a powerful nation punishes others for speaking freely, when it helps keep other dictators in power, when it makes the world afraid to criticize it, freedom everywhere gets weaker. We're not talking about fear of China as a people or a culture. We're talking about the actions of a government that doesn't believe in freedom and what happens when that government becomes one of the most powerful in the world. This isn't about hate, it's about being honest. If we believe in free speech, human rights, and open societies, then we have to ask, are we standing up for those values, or are we staying silent out of fear? China's rise is not just an economic or political change. It's a test of what kind of world we want to live in. A world where people are free to speak, to think, and to choose, or a world where silence is forced and fear spreads across borders. That's why I believe China's rise under its current leadership and values is a serious threat to global freedom. And we need to pay attention now before it's too late.
Thank you. I believe we need to see China's rise with open eyes, but not with fear. There's a big difference between a country growing stronger and being a threat. Just because China is rising doesn't mean it wants to take away freedom from others. In fact, its rise may help create a more balanced and fair world for everyone. Let's look at what China has actually done over the past few decades. It has lifted over 800 million people out of poverty, more than any other country in human history. It has built modern cities, high-speed trains, and powerful industries. It has become the world's largest trading partner for over 120 countries. That means China is not hiding behind walls, it's connecting with the world, not trying to control it. Some people say China's government is different, and that's true. But different does not always mean dangerous. Every country has its own history, its own path. China doesn't tell others how to run their countries. It doesn't invade. It doesn't start wars. While the West often talks about freedom, it's important to remember that real freedom also means respecting different systems, even if we don't fully agree with them. Let's take the example of Africa or Latin America. China has helped many countries there build roads, hospitals, and energy systems. It gives loans and builds things without trying to change their politics. That's a kind of partnership people appreciate. It's not about forcing ideas. It's about getting things done. As for the concerns about censorship and rights, yes, those are real issues inside China, but they are internal challenges, and they are being debated within Chinese society. Just like any country, China is not perfect, but that doesn't make it a global threat. In fact, trying to isolate or attack China for being different may only make things worse. We should engage, talk, and exchange, not push away. Many people worrying about things like TikTok, Chinese apps, or influence in media. But influence goes both ways. American movies, ideas, and culture have spread all over the world, including inside China. That's not a threat, that's exchange, and China, like any country, is learning, adjusting, and modernizing over time. If we label every rising power as a threat, we're locking ourselves into a mindset of fear. That mindset leads to division, not peace. It causes countries to build walls instead of bridges. We should ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want? One where only a few countries hold power and tell others how to live? Or a world where there's room for many voices, many systems, and shared progress? We must protect freedom? Yes, but true freedom means not being afraid of change. China's rise is not a threat, it's a chance to build a more balanced world. One where no single country dominates, and where cooperation replaces conflict. That's why I believe we need to see China not as a danger, but as a partner. And if we truly care about freedom, we should work together to make it stronger, not divide the world in fear.
Now, let's hear the first rebuttal. AURIN and BAIYU will respond to each other's points.
Thank you. BAIYU highlights China's success in lifting people out of poverty and building roads across the world. That is true and impressive, but we need to ask, at what cost? Many of those loans come with strict terms. When small countries can't pay back, China often takes control of key ports or resources. That hurts their freedom to choose their own path. BAIYU says China doesn't invade or start wars, but it does use economic pressure. Companies that speak out against China lose markets. Athletes, actors, and news outlets change their words too. Stay in favor. That sends a clear message. Criticize us and you pay the price. When big businesses silence themselves, ordinary people lose voices to. Yes, partnerships and trade can bring growth, but China's government ties those deals to its own model of control. It builds surveillance systems in other countries, then trains local police to use them. Cameras and face recognition tech can track protests and clamp down on dissent. Technology meant for safety becomes a tool for control. Finally, BAIYU calls for dialogue, and I agree dialogue is important. But we cannot ignore the growing reach of China's values that often place state power above individual freedom. If we stay silent now, we teach governments everywhere you can expand your power without worrying about consequences. That lesson weakens freedom not just in China, but around the globe.
Thank you. AURIN worries that China's loans and infrastructure deals come with strings attached. It is true that some projects can lead to debt pressure. But let's remember, sovereign nations enter these deals by choice. Many governments see real benefits in better roads, modern ports, and reliable power. They know the risks and make decisions based on their own interests. AURIN points to economic pressure on companies, but this happens everywhere. Governments of all stripes use trade and investment to influence behavior. Look at how Western sanctions and trade rules are used. It's not uniquely Chinese. Businesses adapt globally, and people find other ways to speak out online and offline. About surveillance technology? Yes, China exports cameras and software, but so do many other countries. The question is how any government chooses to use those tools. We should focus on strong laws and oversight at home, not blaming the technology provider. Finally, AURIN says China's values threaten freedom worldwide. But if we mindfully engage with China setting clear red lines on human rights, environmental standards, and fair trade, we can shape better outcomes. Isolation breeds mistrust. Open dialogue, balanced partnerships, and firm principles will protect freedom far more than fear and division.
Thank you, AURIN and BAIYU, for your thoughtful arguments. We've heard strong concerns about control and human rights, and equally strong calls for engagement and balanced dialogue. Now it's over to you. What do you think? Share your views in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Moon Whispers for more debates.
Thank you. BAIYU urges engagement, balanced partnerships, and trust in nations to make good choices. But we must face a simple truth. Power without accountability often erodes freedom. When one nation grows so large and so influential, it gains the ability to shape rules everywhere, sometimes in ways that serve its interests, not ours. First, let's return to economic ties. BAIYU says countries choose their own deals. Yet we've seen real cases where leaders feel forced to agree. When a nation's main source of income comes from projects financed by China, refusing extra demands can threaten jobs, schools, and hospitals. Under that pressure, choice becomes a weak word. It's like saying a person freely chooses to work in a factory when the only other option is no job at all. Second, on technology and surveillance, BAIYU reminds us that many countries sell tracking tools. True, but China's exports often come bundled with training, software updates, and sometimes secret data links back to Beijing. Imagine a police force in a small country using Chinese software, only to find that their citizens' faces and movements are logged on servers halfway around the world. That is not just technology, it is an open door for control beyond national borders. Third, BAIYU sees sanctions and pressure from the West as equivalent to China's influence. But there's a difference in systems. Democratic nations have checks and balances, courts you can appeal to, free presses that can investigate, and public debates that shape policy. In China's system, power is concentrated, decisions are secret, and criticism can lead to disappearances. When that model grows stronger, it can tempt other governments to follow a similar path, trading open discussion for tight control. Finally, we must think about the message we send. If we treat China's rise as normal and assume its leaders will always act in good faith, we risk underestimating how power can change behavior. History shows that empires often began peacefully, then overreached. We should not ignore warning signs just because they come wrapped in trade or infrastructure deals. This is not about hate or fear of a culture or people. It is about values we hold dear: freedom of speech, privacy, fair law, and open societies. To protect these values, we must speak clearly about risks, demand transparency, and stand up when power grows unchecked. Only then can we build partnerships that are truly equal, where every nation and every person can choose their own path, without fear of hidden strings or secret controls.
Thank you. AURIN raises serious concerns about the influence that comes with power. I agree we must stay vigilant whenever any nation grows strong. But I believe the best way to protect freedom is not by isolating or condemning, but by engaging, setting fair rules, and showing that open societies can thrive together even with different systems. AURIN worries that smaller countries choose deals with China only because they have no other options. I understand that concern, but international relations are always about choices under pressure. When the United States, the European Union, or other rich powers offer loans and trade agreements, they, too, expect certain behaviors like respecting Western brands, media, or military partnerships. If we criticize China for linking loans to projects, we must also reflect on how we link our own aid and investment to our values and demands. Rather than pointing fingers, let's push for transparent loan terms everywhere, in China, in the West, and in multilateral groups like the World Bank. Transparency gives everyone the power to decide freely, with full information. AURIN warns that Chinese surveillance systems can feed data back to Beijing. That sounds alarming. But the risk lies not in the maker of the tool, but in how any government uses it. Even in democratic countries, surveillance can be abused unless there are clear laws, independent courts, and public debate. The solution is not to ban technology from one country, but to demand strong privacy laws, open source code inspections, and international standards for data security. When our own governments adhere to strict oversight, they create a model that pressures all technology providers, Chinese or not, to respect freedom. If we close the door on Chinese systems, we forfeit the chance to influence those rules and let opaque networks grow unchecked elsewhere. AURIN contrasts China's system of secret decisions with Western checks and balances. That difference is real, and I value the protections we have in democracies, but no system is perfect. We see government overreach, classified programs, and media consolidation even here. The question is, how do we set global standards? We need forums where democracies, China, and others come together to agree on human rights, labor practices, environmental rules, and technology ethics. The United Nations, regional blocs, and civil society must work as equals, insisting on clear accountability, investigating abuses, and applying constructive pressure. When China is at the table, it feels the weight of international scrutiny. If we shut China out, we lose that leverage. History teaches us that divided worlds breed conflict. In the Cold War, the Iron Curtain separated East and West, fueling suspicion, espionage, and arms races. People on either side suffered. Today, a new curtain of suspicion risks repeating those mistakes. If we label China's rise as an automatic threat, we push it away and push millions of its people, who mostly want a better life, to rally around their government's nationalist narrative. That narrative can then feed the very abuses we fear. Freedom grows not in isolation, but through contact. When students study abroad, they bring ideas back home. When entrepreneurs partner across borders, they share new business models. When artists collaborate, they share stories. China today is already full of exchanges. Scientists working together on climate change, musicians touring, writers translating books. These connections plant seeds of inquiry and debate inside China's society, encouraging voices for greater openness and rights. If we erect walls instead, we limit those positive currents. I share AURIN's commitment to human rights and open societies, but I see China's rise not as an unstoppable wave that will drown freedom, but as a challenge we can meet together with clear rules, strong values, and open dialogue. We must call out abuses everywhere, in China, in the West, or elsewhere. Yet, we must also recognize that engagement, rather than isolation, gives us the best chance to influence change, support brave voices inside China, and build a world where freedom is not just protected behind our borders, but grows across all nations, systems, and cultures. That is the future I choose to believe in.
Thank you, AURIN and BAIYU, for your thoughtful arguments. We've heard strong concerns about control and human rights, and equally strong calls for engagement and balanced dialogue. Now it's over to you. What do you think? Share your views in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Moon Whispers for more debates.